Welcome to the Sprinter Van Build series. Today we are going to be covering Chapter 4, which is really the solar panel installation, and more importantly, why are we putting solar panels on our roof anyway? Why solar? I think it's important that we begin the conversation about why do we even want to put solar panels on a van anyway. So one of the things that we look at is when we're driving down the road and we see all these homes, I think it's important to first just give a high level overview of that. So in this slide here, we are showing solar panels on a roof of a home. And just in this demonstration, we just so happen to have wind turbines, so we're going to throw that into the conversation as well. So when the sun is out and it is hitting the panels are taking the positive energy and sending it through the line of the house out into what I'll refer to as the grid. And the same thing would happen with turbines. So if the wind is spinning, if the wind is blowing and the turbines are spinning, the fans are spinning, it creates energy, and that energy is also collected, and that is then sent through the cables back to the transformers in a power station. All that energy is then stored, and when it's required, that power then goes back out to the transmission grids, which then goes back to our home where we consume it. And then as the sun continues to shine and the wind continues to blow, all this energy is collected. So let's talk about what happens when it's sunny outside and you have a power outage. The solar panels in your home will not generate any energy for you to use in your house. So the solar panels, even though you're collecting the sun, if you don't have some way of storing that energy will continue to go out to the grid but not come back into your house. So just because you have solar panels doesn't mean that you are storing any energy inside of your home, and you're not. And there's a big difference between what we do at home and what we're going to do on a van. The van gets a little bit more complicated. In my van, as I mentioned in the introductory series, I have solar panels on my roof, so when the sun hits these panels, all these solar cells are collecting the positive and negative energy and putting it's sending it first to a charge controller, which is inside of my van. And then that charge controller will then convert whatever voltage requirements that the battery manufacturers make, and you adjust it so that way it sends that amount of energy into the battery, and then the battery stores it. When I'm driving down the road, my alternator, I have a secondary alternator that is also charging my batteries. So anytime I'm driving, if I have my refrigerator on with the freezer, I have my fans in the van running, that I can all run off of this DC appliance current. So it's really 12 volts is what is in my van. The other appliance that we have in the van, the electrical part of the electrical system, is the inverter. And what the inverter does, if the inverter is plugged into an outlet, so let's say I bring my van home, I want to charge up the batteries, even though I never do that, I don't need to do that. But if I'm going to go to a campground and I want to stay there for an extended period of time, I can plug into the campground. Then my inverter also acts as a charging system. And then that is also sent down to the batteries because I set my inverter to whatever the specifications that my battery accepts. And then that also allows my inverter to convert any of this 12 volt energy into 110 volts in the US, but you can set it at 220, whatever you need to do. And then you can run electrical appliances off of it, whether it's a microwave, coffee maker, induction stove, anything you want that runs. So I have outlets in my van for alternating current appliances, and then I also have my USB ports and my cigarette lighter ports for like my computer and things like that. So that's a high-level overview on why we need solar. Go into how do we install solar. This is my Sprinter van, and on my van I had 4 100-watt solar panels, and these are Renogy monocrystalline solar panels. So what we're going to be talking about in this video is how do we attach these 4 panels to the roof of the van safely and securely so when you're flying down the road they don't come off, and none of the wires that are associated to the panels are going to rattle and also get disconnected. So the first thing we're going to need to do is, in the description below on the video, I went out and purchased these brackets, and these brackets are available on eBay, and they have these available for Sprinter. They have them for Ram Pro Master or the Ford Transit. The website that I'll give you on the eBay, this gentleman has a lot of parts for van conversions and also for the fan parts and stuff. You can reach out to him. So the first thing you're going to need to do is buy this, and then the second thing you're going to need to do is buy 8020, which is this aluminum T-strut aluminum, which we will use then to bolt the solar panels to this, and this will all get securely fastened to the roof of the van. And the great thing about it is everything is adjustable, configurable, so that even if we decide to move things or change things on the solar array, then you could easily do it. First step we're going to do is take the brackets once they come in, slide the bracket into this channel here, and we're going to bolt it down so you have one on the driver's side and then one on the passenger side, or the right or the left of the van. And then the next thing you want to do is just take a tape measure and measure across and get your length that you're going to need. You're going to mark it with a pencil, and then you're going to cut this to length. This is aluminum. You want to cut it straight. It's very easy to do it. And you do that with a chop saw and a 60-tooth carbide blade. I have a video that I'm going to show you how we do that. Before we begin, it's important to know that you're going to want to wear your safety glasses, as there is aluminum shards coming off of this as we cut it. But the first thing we're going to do is, this video is so quick, this is why it's so easy to cut this stuff, is you're just going to want to just securely hold the aluminum T-strut in place, start the saw, and then slowly drop the saw blade down as you cut it. And you can see the aluminum's flying everywhere, and that's it. There's nothing to it. This is the 8020 aluminum T-strut. This is the 15 series. And the reason they call it 15 series is the width from point A to point B is 1.5, and from point B to point C is 1.5. So 1.5 meaning 15 series is 1.5 by 1.5. And we'll get into more of that. But you can see a lot more information on their website at 8020.net. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to, in every one of their profiles, they have a hole pre-drilled in. And this one, what we need to do is thread this, and we need to thread this to a 5/16 18 thread to be able to receive the bolt to bolt it into the bracket. Since I'm going to have 4 solar panels, I need 3 of these rails, so I need to tap 6 holes total on all 3 rails, 1 on each side. I'm going to give you another trick on this on how to do that, so let's go to the next video. In this video too, I highly encourage safety glasses because of the shards. First thing you want to do is bolt into the vise your 8020. This is the tapping fluid. You're going to put that onto the tap. Then from there, you're just going to drill it in. I like using the impact gun. And then literally about 10-15 seconds, you take it all the way down, you reverse it, and you're done. We're now going to talk about the 8020 and the mounting brackets, and these are all the things that you will need. So first thing I want to talk about, this is the threaded tap. So here we have a drill. And since our hole was already pre-drilled anyway, there's really no drilling involved. All we're using that is as a guide to go in to do the thread. Then we have the threaded here. This is the 5/16 18-inch threads. And this actually here, just so you know, is a countersink, but we don't need to go down to that. So what I'm really doing is trying to go down to that length. But as it goes in, you will. So this side here is not threaded. And this side I've already done a pre-thread, so when this goes in, you'll see that this just threads right in, and it's done. So that's what we just accomplished. So that was one thing, and the link for this is also on Amazon, so you can easily get that. So this is the 5/16. So as I mentioned in the video, this is the slide rail that goes into the slide of the van, so that when you put this down, this is how this will get bolted in. Okay. Now with the 80/20, a couple things that we want to talk about. These T-profiles, what I love about this product is that this will take all different types of fasteners that you can use then to bolt this. So this is a nut that would go in. You would screw it, it then would lock this, whatever it is that's on top, into this and give you a solid, secure connection. With this, what we want to do is, this is the bracket that we got from eBay. And on this side, you have a bolt. So this is going to actually get bolted this into this. And the first thing we're going to have to do is slide the nuts on this. So you're going to take two bolts on the side. We're going to attach these nuts you get from 80/20. They're on the Amazon website. I want to make sure I used all stainless. And then all we're going to do is slide those into the slot. And down it goes. And then on top here, we'll take a washer. We'll take our bolt. And just tighten it up. So you just take your Allen wrench, you tighten this, tighten it tight, then you do the bottom. That's tight. And this is tight. And that's it. And then this gets bolted onto the van. And the great thing about the van is this will slide back and forth until you know where your adjustments are at. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is why I love this product so much. Is the other thing that we're going to need to do is, you'll see in the description, we're going to need to be bolting. We only need 3 rails, and one of the bolters is going to be an angle iron on it. The great thing about the 80/20 is, if you can see on this edge, this is a carriage bolt, and here you can see there's a little square head. This slides right in, and you cannot spin this. It literally locks it in. I don't have a 1-inch bolt. This is the only one I had to demonstrate. But this is what's great about this. So you can have a bolt coming out that then you could put a nut on it, and that's going to securely fasten without this bolt ever spinning. So a carriage bolt on that is phenomenal. And then the other great thing is you can slide in these different connectors. And then if you want to bolt something on top of this, which we will, will be angle iron, then that's what we'll do. Okay, so that is a quick demonstration about the 80/20 products that we discussed. And there is the tap. The next step that we want to do in the video is, this is our aluminum T slot over here on this table that I'm pointing with the mouse. This is the Renogy 100-watt solar panel that I got off of Amazon. And all we're going to be doing here is we're going to be drilling holes into the side of the aluminum, but on the short side, not the long side. We're going to be drilling a hole in 2 places, 5/16" hole, because we want to attach it to the 80/20 structure here with 5/16" bolts. So how do we start that? First thing I'd highly recommend that you do is, here you want to put the foam packing material that came in the box. You put that on the floor just to protect the panel. The next step that we're going to want to do is, I just measured a couple inches over, whatever you want to measure, and then I drilled in a 5/16" hole on the narrow width of the panel. What I did next was, the panel where you drilled the holes, you then put them through the bolts. These bolts slide into the 80/20 channel that we discussed about before, the carriage bolts. And from there, you just take the locking nut, nylon stainless steel locking nut, and you tighten it down, and it is attached. It's that easy. When we're done, we've got 2 panels. Here's these 2 rails. These are already tapped and ready for the mounting brackets. On the second set of the panel, I wish I had more pictures, but I don't. You're going to do the 80/20 on one side and this aluminum angle on the other side. This is 1.5-inch aluminum angle iron, because this is actually going to bolt onto the 80/20, and we're going to slide in 4 nuts, like here, to be able to receive that and then bolt that to the panel. If you have any questions, just please list it in the description below and I can give you answers back to it. The next step that we have to do is on the back of every solar panel, there's a negative and a positive wire. We have to put these in parallel, which means all the positives got to go together, all the negatives got to go together, and we've got to go from 4 positives and 4 negatives down to 1 wire. So the way that we need to do that is do that with a Y connector, and we need to bolt these Y connectors onto the van somehow where when you're flying down the road on the highway, your cables aren't shaking all over the place, and you need to make sure the connections are solid so you're not going to have any issues. So what I did is I just took an 1.5 inch wide piece of flat stud aluminum. I drilled in 4 holes here to receive these bolts, and then I put a piece of rubber adhesive foam padding on there, and you'll see on the next slide. These holes I drilled because I wanted to put zip ties on there to also secure the Y channel the Y connectors even better. So as you can see here, these are bolted down here. These connectors here, you can see there's a positive, and these connectors are for the negative. So the next step that I did is I put in the zip ties, just clipped them off, and then the final step here was to pop rivet this into my panel so everything was secured. When we're done, I just did a dry fit on this before it went up onto the roof. This is the aluminum angle iron on the one. This is the 80/20, so this will bolt onto that. And this is what it would look like underneath the van. So we're going to go from 8 wires down to 4 wires, and then 4 wires with this other Y connector. We're going to go down to 1 positive. This will be 1 positive, and this will be 1 negative. The next step that we're going to do is we're going to put the solar panels up on the roof. If you can see in this video, for those of you that might have caught it, these brackets are on backwards. They should be reversed where this part is on here and this is on the bottom. So you just need to make sure they're positioned properly. This part of it, you need to get help. I tried to do this alone and I learned the hard way, and it really hurt. When you're lifting these panels up, these panels, there's so much surface area, it does act like a sail. So I was actually going up on the roof and I got completely blown off of the roof with the solar panels. So just make sure you don't do this alone and that you get help doing this, because you don't want to be damaging your solar panels yourself or whatever you fall on. The first thing we're going to need to do is make sure we put the back solar panel in first. Then make sure on this section, before you completely put in here, you've got 4 nuts, because these 4 nuts are going to have to be in there for receiving the angle iron from the other one. And I use Loctite on the nuts that are going to go, the bolts that are going on here. I don't have all the pictures, I apologize, but when you look at the second panel, so this panel in the back has 80/20 and 80/20, those 2 panels. So that was the one that had all the 80/20 on it. This one had 1 80/20 rail and the aluminum angle iron, and that aluminum angle iron, you can see the 4 bolts. Those are the ones that got bolted into the 80/20 channel. So now that this is here, and we don't want to bolt it down just yet, but you want to get everything dry fitted, I made sure that when I put my fans in, I planned my fan locations based on the number of solar panels that I had, and that's why they were positioned the way they are. So now that we know how we get this secured on the roof, how do we run the wires into the van? First thing we're going to need to do is, once we have a layout of where the panel is going to actually be, you're going to measure the distance once you get to the Y channel, the Y connectors, and you'll see about where the cables are going to come out and they need to go into the van. So once you identify where the cable is going to go into the roof of the van, you're going to drill a hole, and you absolutely have to get a rubber grommet so that these cables are protected from any movement from going down the road. The next thing you're going to do, and all this stuff is listed in the description and available on Amazon, source it where you want, you're going to have to get these rubber grommet exterior connectors where this is going to go in here. Once you tighten this down, there's a rubber grommet on this side. It will tighten it, weather seal it, and then this is going to go into a box. So you're going to need these connectors, and you can see how the connector comes in, this nut, and you're going to have a positive and negative cable going into the van below. Do not connect these wires to the solar panel until you get breakers put inside, because once these are connected, then as soon as the sun hits that panel, there is current coming through this positive and the negative. So make sure you keep those disconnected. Here what we have is we have the cables going through the roof, the positive and negative. The connectors are all tight. Your rubber gaskets, your nuts are tightened down. Next part is you're going to put a sealant on there, descriptions in the panel, and then this is what it looks like here. As I mentioned, you can see that this cable is in close proximity to this, and you do not want to connect these two cables until your positive and your negative inside the van are connected to a breaker and it's turned off. You don't want free flowing current. The next thing we're going to do is put our DevCore level sealant on here, just to give you a nice seal on the van. Then once that's done, we're going to get into the charge controller and the electrical components at another one. This was just how do we attach these solar panels, do the wiring, and why we did it. The other thing that I just want to bring out one other point is, this is what I did originally. After I put all this in, I did not need 400 watts because of my condition. That doesn't mean it's going to be the same for yours, but you just got to do some calculations on how much solar you need versus the consumption that you're going to have. And that was one of the reasons I went to Life Blue when I bought my batteries, because those guys are so helpful. They were able to really help me with these calculations out. So I'll put a link in the description for them as well. But I originally had 400 watts, and then now I'm at 200 watts. And then you've got the distance here. One comment just to make, you'll see these nuts here are a little rusted. It's actually the bolt. I would highly recommend that you just get some paint and touch that up, because you will have a little bit of surface rust there. So that's all I have on the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, any comments, please list it in the comment section below. And if you want to see any of future videos, please subscribe and hit the thumbs up. And we'll talk to you on the next one. Thank you.